A new week, a whole new conversation built around your questions. Welcome back to 360 Speedway. Welcome back to 360 Speedway episode 9. Hope you've had a good weekend, hope you've had a good week, hope you've enjoyed some speedway and that the old British summer weather didn't interfere with those plans. So welcome back to Speedway HQ, good to be with you once again. A different format this week, we're going to shake things up a little bit. No discussion topics, no fans pulse, that's going to be rested for a week. Instead, we are picking up your questions. So thank you very much for everyone who submitted questions. Some arrived by WhatsApp, some arrived by YouTube, some arrived by email. We picked up all of those and we're going to put them to this week's panel, 360 panel. And let me introduce those to you right now. Let's bring them on screen. First off, welcome back, Carol Johnson. Thanks for stepping into the Speedway breach once again, Carol. Simon Lambert, welcome back to you, and congratulations on your big score against the Bandits on Friday. That must have, let me just ask you directly, Simon, that must have felt good given a few weeks of struggle.
2 months, but yeah, back to normal service resumed, and a weight off my shoulders, let's say.
I bet it was. And Nigel Crabtree, welcome back, Nigel.
Cheers, Derek. Good to be here.
Hey up, Nigel. That's what I should have said.
Hey up, Derek.
Okay, listen, so the format is we're just going to pick off one by one and have a little bit of a discussion around some of the questions that you, 360 Speedsters, have sent in. So first up, press the right button. So this was actually, I did actually receive a voice message through WhatsApp from Stephen C in Glasgow. Thank you, Stephen. I just didn't have the time to tee up the voice note and play it out. But here's what Stephen has asked. So, me and my daughter have recently started watching Speedway at Glasgow. Bomber seems to race for other teams as well. Is it different leagues or different cups? Can you help fill us in? Thank you very much. So, gents, this is exactly, and Stephen, listen, you're absolutely correct. You have picked up on the fact that Chris Harris, as many riders do, have a team berth in more than one league in Britain. So. The Premiership, which is the televised league, is the so-called top league, and the Championship, as you know, is the so-called second tier of British Speedway. There's lots of riders who have team berths in both of those leagues. We talk about Speedway trying to attract new supporters and all that good stuff, and then when they do come along, as Stephen and his daughter have, they're enjoying the product, but a little bit befuddled by this concept of riders having more than one team. Carol Johnson, I'm going to come to you first if you don't mind, because you have the promoter / team manager lens to kind of field this question from Stephen. And Simon, obviously you're still currently riding, and you have in the past, and hopefully will again, have benefited from the ability to ride in both leagues, I guess. And I'll let you explain why, from a rider's perspective, that's beneficial. But Carol, let me come to you first. It is a confusing, befuddling concept for supporters when they look to football and rugby and things like that.
Yeah, obviously somebody new to the sport that's supporting a team, obviously like Glasgow. See Chris riding in different teams, not just obviously doubling up with the Premiership, but also guesting for Championship teams and Premiership teams. Obviously, Chris, we all know, gives 110%, so everybody that can book him does book him. And Chris will never shy away from a booking if he's available. So yeah, it can be confusing for obviously new people, new supporters, and it takes a bit of getting used to as to what's going on. It's like 1 week he's racing for Glasgow at home, and then the next week he's guesting for Scunthorpe at home, and it's it can be confusing like that. But as we've said, riders need these guest bookings, need the double leagues to make their living in the UK. We spoke in the week about, the finances of riders, and they need as many bookings as they can to fulfill their lifestyle as a speedway rider. And if they're not racing abroad in Poland, which is where at the minute the big money is, they need these extra leagues, extra rides, just to fill that need for the financial side of things. So yeah, it is confusing, and I totally understand with people, but because of the lack of probably riders about, you do find that you get a lot of guest bookings for the top riders, and you seem to see them quite a lot, and obviously Chris is one of them.
Thank you, Carol. Simon, let me bring you in. So from a rider perspective, Carol has just more or less said in summary that riders need to ride ideally in both leagues to help make Speedway pay, right? Is it as black and white as that, Simon?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, somebody like me, I rely on sponsors to help you get set up. I'm full time in the championship, and obviously, Saturday night cancelled, so I've got 2 more meetings left this month, and we're on like the 8th. So it's no good. Doing one home, one away is no good. But obviously, next year it's got to be looked at. It's got to be either one big league, 2 home, 2 away, or the championship's got to be 2 home, 2 away, really, to warrant it. But as a rider, you never turn a booking down, because end of the day, we're self-employed, and we only get paid what we score. Obviously, somebody like Bomber's a lot more at market than somebody like me. He's always good for sort of 10 everywhere. So he's more expensive than me, but that's life, isn't it? We've all got a worth, and we can't afford to turn meetings down. We're silly if we do, and as long as it's obviously it's viable. I mean, I think some of the boys last Friday night were at Glasgow and Edinburgh, and they were down at Plymouth on Saturday, and it got rained off. That's financial suicide, really, but you can't help good old British summer. So yeah, no, any extra meetings we take, and it also allows you to try put get your name out there, and you never know, it allows more further down the season.
Makes sense, Simon. Nigel, let's bring you in on this. Nigel, it's perfectly understandable that Stephen and his daughter and many other prospective new supporters, every club in the land encourages their fan base to introduce new people to Speedway, and sometimes when they come along, yes, they can get their head round what they see on track, the point scoring, etc. But when it comes to seeing riders riding for more than one team in the same country, etc., it can be quite a confusing concept, Nigel.
Very much so. But first of all, it's good to hear folks like Stephen and his daughter just started going to Speedway. 2 new people going to Speedway, which is great. And the fact that he's come on to 360, put that question through, great. And I hope he enjoys himself and gets 1 or 2 others to go with him. That's brilliant. But no, going back to this though, the BSPA initially started this scheme, the doubling up, for riders like Simon that don't ride in Poland and Sweden and everywhere. With the British Speedway tracks closing, one thing and another, there weren't enough meetings for lads like Simon. So they brought it in that they would have this doubling up scheme to give the English lads, at first it was for just the English lads, I believe, going back a few years, give them chance to get more meetings in and earn a living out of Speed, or earn enough money to keep them going in Speedway. That's what initially it was brought in for. And then since then, more tracks have shut down, more doubling up. I mean, I don't like it. I think it's terrible. And like Stephen says in his letter there to you, it's confusing. Like we've all said, very confusing. But it's the way British Speedway is having to run at the minute. But it's just how it is. More tracks have shut down. Less riders seem to be about. So they've had to use this doubling up scheme to make it all work. And hopefully for, like Simon, I know Simon did a doubling up year. I think Simon will correct me if I'm wrong. I think he did it with Kingslyn and maybe Scunthorpe, was it? Which would be brilliant for Simon. Great for him and great for the English lads. and that's what it was set out to do, but it's sort of gone on from there, and maybe it's gone a little bit too far now, but how they'll do it next year, like Carl says, Simon, it needs doubling up next year. Well, they can't ride for two clubs then, surely. So maybe British Speedway has to just go backwards a little bit to move forwards and stop this and bring some of the young English lads. We were talking before we came on air, wasn't we, about Joe Thompson, how he has progressed, and he's the next big hope for England, I would think. But there are other lads coming through as well, and you'd like to hope. The one lad that really does seem to impress, and I do like when I see him interviewed, is that the young boy Cooper Russian.
Cooper Russian, yeah.
Yeah, whenever you see him interviewed,
yes,
he's only a kid. He looks like he hasn't even come out of primary school yet. Never mind go to bloody first, the secondary school. But every time you see him interviewed, always smiling, always happy. Great to see that, I think. And good luck to the kid. I hope he goes on, and I hope he's our next one as well.
That's because he hasn't met any girls yet. Is that right, Cooper? Cooper Russian, another call out for you, Cooper. Listen, all the 360 team and the world of British Speedway seems to be across your progress, young man. So congratulations again on what you achieved out in Prague just a week or two back. Keep up that good work. Stephen C in Glasgow, I hope you and your daughter are enjoying the product of Speedway. Yes, there are some rules and regulations around Speedway, which sometimes has questionable credibility, and it does make you scratch your head a little bit. And remember, not only do riders have more than one club in Britain, but they also ride often for clubs in Poland and Sweden and maybe even Denmark. So it's a different sport. You can't really compare it in that respect against many other team sports. But hopefully Simon has given you some insight. Riders, in effect, are self-employed, and obviously for obvious reasons they want to earn the best living that they can through participating in the sport and getting the reward for their investment in equipment and all that good stuff. Stephen, hopefully that clears things up a little bit. And please tap me on the shoulder one week at Glasgow and introduce yourself. I'll be pleased to meet you. Thank you, Stephen. Okay, gents, let's pick up the next question, which has come from Gemma in Stoke-on-Trent via WhatsApp. Thank you, Gemma, for taking time to message in. A really interesting question, actually, Gemma. Gemma's looking for our thoughts on e-Speedway. In short, is this the future? So I've got my own thoughts on it. I'm sure you guys have as well. Carol, I've given you you've had most thinking time. E-Speedway, Carol, as a concept, what do you think?
Not top end Speedway, no. I think e-Speedway, because of obviously restrictions with sound nowadays, and you always want to keep the sound within Speedway, which is obviously on a race night, at all these meetings. You need that. You need the sound, the smell. That's one of the draws for supporters. But I do think potentially e-Speedway for the junior side of things, the junior tracks, the smaller tracks to learn on, is probably the perfect thing for it, because these junior tracks need to be running. Like Scunthorpe obviously got the little track, and Leicester, and they need to be running these as much as possible. Well, when there's sound restrictions, obviously you can't do that with methanol machines. So I think the side of things for the juniors is perfect. As soon as you get up to a 500 or 250 to 500, then no, I think that's I don't think that's going to happen, now or in the future.
Simon, I hope you're not taking this as a trip to the bathroom. I'm going to
just sorting a drink out for my little one.
Thank goodness for that. I'm going to skip you just now, Simon. Let you get settled. Nigel, e-Speedway. More and more motorsports, and I say motorsports. There seems to be a bit of a contradiction there. How can a motorsport be based around e anything, right?
I would hope not. I think probably the electric speedway's got about as much chance of surviving as the electric cars have. I don't know. It'll all fade away, in my opinion. In time, the electric cars, the e-Speedway, all this, it'll all fade away in time. I don't know. No, like Carl said, the thing about Speedway is the noise, isn't it? The noise. But does does 4 bikes going around a track make? I know it's a little bit different, but 70,000 people packed into Old Trafford or Main Road or Arsenal, wherever. Arsenal's in a built-up area, Chelsea's in a built-up area. Does that make a lot more noise than 70,000 people in Stamford Bridge for 90 minutes? I don't know. Speedway, noise is part of it, and like Carl says, the smell doesn't seem to be as much nowadays, but certainly the noise, it's part of Speedway, isn't it? And I don't know, they've put the silencers on, they've quietened it down. They came out, I think, in 76, I think they came out, didn't they, the silencers? Everybody doubted that, but here we are, still going, so who knows, maybe I'm totally wrong on the E-Speedway, but no, you've got to have some noise, haven't you? You know, you've got your bikes on the TT and everything, the noise as the bikes are whistling past. Can you imagine sat there and an e-bike come wandering past you, no noise? Nah, not for me, I don't think. Not for me, but
I'm with you, Nigel. You know, the clues in the name, surely, a motorsport just suggests it. There's got to be some noise and atmosphere. Simon Lambert, here's a what if scenario, Simon. So what if the trade-off was that E-Speedway was the future, and by following that future, that would mean that there would be new clubs, new tracks popping up everywhere, that crowds would swarm to watch it because it becomes more popular, and the profile's better and all that good stuff. That's the future that those who promote E-Speedway would suggest, right? That the noise abatement argument disappears, the planning permission side of it disappears, and new clubs would sprout up everywhere. Simon, Speedway would be bountiful and have an abundance of clubs and supporters once again.
I'm a bit 50-50 with it, to be fair. I respect somebody like Paul Bowen, who I know has put a lot of time and effort into developing it and the protocols of the bikes and this and that. He actually rang me once to get a Scunthorpe and try one, but it was a little bit short notice, so I couldn't make it. But then I also sit and think, I totally agree with the noise and the smell and that, but I'm a bit of a Speedway geek. I'm a follower, I'm a racer, I'm a rider, whatever, and I'm a fan and a rider. But what do you do from November? It's not really November, it's October now, isn't it? When I was 10 years ago, Carl will agree with this, when he was promoted Peterborough, Speedway was March to October. I remember I broke my wrist once, 14th of October. I was riding for Stoke at the time as well, Crabby, for Tatham.
Yeah.
I missed 17 days of the season and had 14 meetings left. I haven't got 14 meetings at the minute in 3 months. Do you know what I'm saying? With the E-Speedway, if somebody grabbed the bull by the horns and could get 16 bikes, and let's say, you don't need your superstars because they probably want to do it. If you got 16 of me, do you know what I mean? Go and you get given a bike before you start and they're all the same. You can do it anywhere. You can do it indoor. It puts bums on seats. It keeps the word Speedway and the name Speedway circulated. And it's a product, they do these flat track and all that indoors, don't they, during the off season? Why can't they do E-Speedway? There's no noise problems, there's no this, there's no. But you've got to look at the tracks, like some of the tracks that have shut down. Swindon, they said, was because of noise. Peterborough, because of noise and new property. I remember, when I was 4 years old, sat on my dad's shoulders level with the tapes every Friday night at Peterborough. Not a house in sight. And now if you stood there, you see Carl Johnson's house. Do you know what I'm saying? It's mental. It is so mental. But I know it wouldn't affect Carl, but other people, Newcastle, that's obviously shut now. But the ones who live around the track, you could literally first, second, third or fourth in a race, cross the finish line. As you rode off the track towards the pitch, you could see them stood in the top window. Well, they're happy to watch it for note.
Yeah.
But they're probably the ones that complain about the noise. It's very tough. But, I think with E-Speedway, it would give younger kids an opportunity more to come through as well. My lad's, he's got one of these Revy bikes and he absolutely loves it. He can just jump on it and go anywhere on it. Imagine if I got on my speedo bike and took him to school on it. God, I'd get lynched, wouldn't I? I'd get killed, I'd get done. Whereas on his revy bike, he can just get on it and go. So pros and cons to it. But I mean, listen, I look at it and think, is it ever going to work? Probably not. But if somebody said to me, will you do a meeting for nothing and try and get it out there, I'd be all for it, because at the same time, it's bike time. It's still skillful. You know, I think people think Speedway is an easy sport, and it's really not. But it takes a lot of skill in that, and it would be good. You know, like you're always going to get a few kids like we. You know, Crabby just said Cooper Rushton and that, and you Will Cairns, people like that. But going forward, like, there's got to be a break somewhere. Like, what's the point of having a national league if we don't move the boys from the national league to, say, the championship at reserve? And we call it British Speedway, but there isn't very many Brits riding it. Do you know what I mean? And then, obviously, going back to question one, why does Bomber do this and that? Well, there isn't enough riders to fulfil the 7 teams in the top league, the 9 teams in the championship. There's not enough riders for that. So how could you even think of having a squad system? So us 4 could put the world to rights for Speedway, really. But I just think, I'm a believer, give it a chance, you know. Give them a chance. If it fails, at least they can say we've tried it. But until then, I'm a bit 50-50 on it.
Listen, Simon, I can tell you've given it a bit of thought, and you've stepped out of the box. You're giving it a chance. You're not closing down the prospect of it. And if it was e-speedway or no speedway, then that's a different dilemma, right? But it'll take its natural course. Paul Bowen, you mentioned. I've seen some videos, and I know Paul was quite impressed by the performance of the bike, and it still pulled his arms out of the sockets, I seem to remember. And who's to say that maybe if that sport was able to showcase itself around the speedway tracks, and just get supporters a little bit more familiar with it, then who knows where that could lead to. And to your point, Simon, we could do indoor speedway, I'm quite sure, at multiple venues during the winter months as well.
You could do anything. Like, obviously Scunny's mini track is probably too small. But I've said this, I love what Glasgow have done, and I love what Leicester have just done, with the mini tracks in the middle. Make use of it, get kids there. Like, for instance, Scunny on Friday night did a kids race like, you do at Glasgow, and there was 20 kids in it. Well, hopefully next week, or not next week, the week after, when we're there again, there'll be 30 kids in it.
Yeah.
That's how I remember Glasgow. One week I think I watched it on the BS, and there must have been 100 kids in there. Well, that's what you want. Yeah. 'Cause every kid that's there's a paying adult there, and
exactly.
It's like you said, if it was e-speedway or no speedway, everyone would be more for it. But and no disrespect to Paul, Paul's not the best speedway rider in the world. Let somebody like Chris Harris go on the mini track at Leicester or Glasgow and have a crack at it and show us what it can do. And do you get what I'm saying? It's a tricky one, isn't it? But
it is.
Put one of the bigger boys on it and be like, yeah, well, it can do this, it can do that. And would it be rained off? Yeah, people might not want to go watch it, but would it have to be rained off? Because obviously the torque and that from the spray and from the back wheel and everything is obviously visibility is an issue, but is it as dangerous? I don't know.
Yeah. All good questions, as was yours, Gemma, from Stoke-on-Trent. So thanks very much for getting us thinking about e-speedway. It's not talked about probably often enough, and given the sort of political direction of travel, everything's everything's no gas and oil products and all that good stuff. So speedway may in the fullness of time not be exempt from that. But thank you, Gemma. Okay, in the interest of moving on, next question also arrived in WhatsApp from Jodie. Not sure which part of the country you're in, Jodie, but thanks for the question, which is, how did everyone start out in Speedway, and how do people start now? How would you go about it? So, Jodie, I don't know if in your situation you've got a youngster who might be interested in doing that. Simon, let me come back to you if you don't mind. You're a current rider. Do you have the odd parent, Simon, periodically who will ask you this question at Scunthorpe? How can their son or daughter get started?
I
obviously they do the experience days, but your days at Scunthorpe and that, it's just fun. You've got to, if you, like I say, a lot of people sit behind or stand behind the fence and think, oh, that's easy, but get them Kevlars on and have a go, and it's not as easy as it looks. But your trips at Scunthorpe and all that, and I don't know whether they're going to start doing that Leicester and Glasgow. I want the mini trail. I know Scotty Nichols and Paul Urry have just started days up. Just, it's one of them, you know. If you don't try, you don't know in life. You could have a kid who's the next British world champion. You never know, do you? So I'm a believer of let them have a go, and it's the only way you'll learn, won't it?
Nigel, we've talked in recent weeks about the sort of the buoyancy in terms of unearthing new British talent. You know, there's lots of young talented riders all over the UK, actually different parts of the UK who are participating in the British Youth Championship, and you get some track time after meetings at their own local track. But that was kind of the same sort of approach, Crabby, back in the day, right? You used to maybe manage to cobble together enough money to buy a bike, and you would second half after the meeting.
I was probably fortunate, because going back in the day when we was a kid, we had the farm, and some of the lads from Bradford, the Australians, New Zealanders, used to stop at the farm. So I found it easy, because I'd got somebody telling me how to go on, showing me how to go on, if you like. I think, like Simon says, Paul Urry, Scott Nichols have started one up, haven't they? And my grandkids, they've been going to Aidan Collins and Les Collins. They do slide and skid it, I think it's called, up at Leicester, and it's absolutely brilliant. You don't need any. Sorry, did I say Leicester? Up at Lim, sorry. Just a track in the field, great little track, and they have all the gear, all the bikes. And if anybody fancies to go, you pay your money, you go, you have a go. My kids have been 10, 15 times, I would think, 10 times. They love it, and now they're just getting into grass track now. But it's great, that is, at Lim, what Aidan and Les Collins are doing. Absolutely brilliant. It's just one way of getting into it, to see if you like it. It's also on 125 engines bikes, proper speedway bikes, 125 engines. So nothing too serious, nothing too dangerous, really. And just see if you like it. And that seems to be the way at the minute, like Scott and Paul Urry. Do they do it at Ladies down in Kent? I think we might do it. Simon knows more about it than me. But great way to start, somebody helping you along the way. And like Aidan and Les have no kind of grandkids, no end, really, it's been really good. You're doing a first-class job up there, and if you don't fancy being a speedway rider, but you just want to have a ride and see what it's like, you go up there, you pay your money, all the gear's there, and away you go. It's absolutely brilliant. I can't say it enough.
Very good. I do like that approach, Nigel. So, Carol, a sort of try before you buy opportunity. That's got to be the way to go, right?
Yeah, obviously, which you can do. Used to do with Wayne Carter up at Scunthorpe. But I go back to when I first started, and my first experience was, obviously I went to the showground with my stepdad. It was like, Speedway, I've never been before. He was a regular. I went along, 8 years old, fell in love with it after the first night. Purely the noise, the smell. Fell in love with it. Ended up going to Eastbourne, to the junior track at Eastbourne that was run at the time by Alan Johns. And I look at that and go, look at the riders that come through Eastbourne junior track that made it into seniors and made it into British superstars, really. We went from there, we built the junior track at Mildenhall. When Barry Clapp was involved at Mildenhall, Alan Johns come up, we built the junior track at Mildenhall. Nice little pear-shaped track, phenomenal track. Got the likes of Savalas Clout in, Stevie Knott through it, Andrew Mountain. The riders that come through them, just them two tracks alone were unbelievable. Like obviously Eastbourne, you've got Norris's, you've got Dugard. They all come through it. Standings come through that. Ben Howe, they all come through that system. Now, we lack that system now. You could turn up there, hire a bike, pay your money, hire a bike. There used to be 90cc's, Honda engines in little shortened frames. Obviously, I'm not the tallest person, never have been. When I was 8, 9 years old, I was obviously quite diddy. So he had a shortened bikes that was perfect. We used to go ride it. If you bent it, it didn't matter. If you didn't get any scars or badges, you weren't trying hard enough. That's what he used to say. And it was great fun for kids, for 8, 9, 10, 11 years old. And that's what we lack now. We lack that age group. Like Simon was, look at Kai now, look at my Charlie. They're both the same age. There's nothing for them unless you go out and buy your own bike. That's obviously an expense. Then where do you go and ride it? Yeah. Where can you go and ride it now? You go to Leicester, you've got to hire the track or pay for that privilege just to hire the track. There's not them schools now for the kids to go to and race. And I've had this conversation with Emerson Betty today. I've been talking to his dad and Emerson. He's 15. Leicester are now looking at putting him in their own NDL side, but he's getting no track time. He's getting no track time anyway. He went to Ipswich the other week and done one ride in the second half. That's not good enough. Yeah. When I was 15, I was getting second half rides at Peterborough, and we was doing 3-4 races, proper races. We was going all over. But that seems to have dropped off. People are not interested in that. They just want you to be a superstar overnight. And unfortunately, that's not going to happen. There's the odd one or two, as we know, that are coming through that are of that standard, but not enough. And not enough is not good enough for British Speedway. We need to blood a lot more youngsters. And the only way you do that is on smaller tracks, give them that track time, a Sunday morning, a Saturday, whatever it is. You go and ride. You just ride. You ride all morning, and that's it. If you get hurt, you get hurt. That's part of Speedway, as we know. But there needs to be more. We said this the other week about the Berwick. Like obviously, Courtney's are selling the Berwick Junior track. This is what the BSPL now should be jumping on and going, right, let's invest. Yeah. And get something there, and let's have a northern training track that we can get the northern guys onto, and get them, riding, racing up there. It just opens another avenue, and they're not doing it, and there's nobody around that is.
Yeah. No, listen to you guys. Thank you very much. You've covered quite a lot of ground there, and Jodie, please don't be put off. So if there is a youngster who's interested in starting, hopefully you picked up some options, or you built up a sense of what may or may not be available to you. Lots of young riders do a lot of travelling around the UK to try and find some track time or hire some track time. But probably the advice I would give is to speak to someone at your local track. Speak to a rider, speak to one of the juniors who are perhaps quite recently have gone through that same dilemma to try and find a way to learn and get into Speedway. So please don't be put off. And to your thanks, guys, for your various points, and hopefully British Speedway itself, to your point, Carol, can maybe impart with just a little bit of investment in even hiring tracks periodically and installing a couple of riders to run some training schools and make that geographical spread around the UK. Thanks for your question, Jodie.